This is a vintage 12-inch Magnavox field coil speaker. We're going to recone it. We're going to replace the voice coil, and we're going to put a new spider in it. Should be a fun one, so if this interests you, stay tuned. Alrighty, some of you may recognize this speaker from a previous video where we did a rewind of the field coil. So we got that done, and it's on to replacing this stuff. So I took some acetone and tried to carefully remove the paper cone, but it kind of didn't go so good. I guess in a pinch, if this was some odd size, I could reuse it, but I decided to get a new one. And it also has a pretty good tear in it, so that's our cage we have to work with. The spider, I wanted to reuse that, but it's kind of warped and it's got a few tears in it. So I decided to replace that, and then I just, as long as I was at it, got a new voice coil because I don't know if I'd end up destroying it, taking the old one out or whatever, but is what we're going to use. So let me change the camera angle. I'll be right back. The original spider measured outside to outside is about 2 5/8 inches, which turns out to be a pretty oddball sized spider. So the smallest one I could find to fit was a 3-inch, and I have a pic here of the what it looks like before I trimmed it down. And as it turns out, trimming it down gets it to 2 3/4 inches, so it's just a tad large, but it will fit inside there just barely. So I made a couple of things to aid in placing it. So once we put it in there, I thought just the weight of this would kind of even it out. But I got a washer here that we can set on top to make sure that it sets nice and flat in there. So the first step is gluing that into the cage here. So we'll get that set up and I'll be right back. All right. So this is our close-up view of excuse me, the landing of where we're going to glue the spider on. And the glue we're going to use is this glue from simplyspeaker.com, the MI-3035, specifically for gluing the spiders down. So this is our spider, and as you can see, it just barely fits, and that's where this doesn't quite sit down nice and straight. It needs a little persuasion. So that will hold it in place when we glue it. So we'll put our voice coil in, and that's our new voice coil, also from Simply Speaker, and I paid for all this stuff, so this is no gimme or anything. So we'll I already test fit it, and it fits nice inside the spider with just a little bit of an air gap there, so we don't get any speaker rub. So we'll I'm putting the spider on the voice coil off camera here, so see if I can get that in there. There we go. Alright, so you see it kind of has a little space there, which is what we need. I'll just move these wires up out of the way. Be a real drag to break one of those off. So yeah. Just kind of test fitting everything to make sure that there's going to be no impingement on the voice coil. That looks to be good. Yeah. Hopefully that'll work. Bending these wires up real nice. All right. We'll all right, let me get this set up real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. I was struggling to get that off of there on film. So I'm just opening up the glue. And let's see here. All right, so we're gonna just run a bead along the outside here. All right. That should hopefully do it. All right. guess we only got one shot at this. Don't want to screw it up. All right, so we'll let that dry for 24 hours and we'll be on to the next step. All right, real quick, I wasn't sure that the glue was attaching to the spider, so I put some glue in this little plastic syringe and went around the outside of it to make sure that a doggone thing is being glued down. So anyway, let that set for 24 hours. Okay, we got our spider glued in, and I can't remember if I mentioned when you order voice coils, and I would assume speaker cones and whatnot, they send you a shim kit that has different thicknesses of shims for your voice coil, and I just start with the thinnest one and work my way up till I get one that will fit tightly but not too tightly. It needs to be reasonably snug, but you'll know when you get the next bigger size up, it won't fit at all. So I have our coil depth adjusted, and luckily I could go off the old speaker. The very top of the coil was about level with the center pin in there, and it seems like most of the speakers I've worked on that's been about right. So if you shine a light in here and there's a little notch on the side where the masking tape is, you can see where the coil starts. So I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be in the ballpark. So I'm just about ready to glue that sucker in. One other thing to check. So I went around and made sure there was no rub on that. Went all the way around the spider, make sure it wasn't brushing up against that voice coil, because that would potentially throw things off. And I did actually have to take a razor blade in a couple spots and open it up just a tickle. So anywho, we're about ready to glue this in. I'm just going to use some Loctite 5-minute epoxy, and this one has the auto mixing tip. I usually don't like to use the auto mixing tip because you waste so much in the doggone tip. There's probably enough in this mixing tip to do 2 gluings, but actually once you open these epoxies up, the shelf life is not that long anyway, and it's not like I'm epoxying a bunch of stuff, so it would probably be just a 2-use deal. We'll epoxy the voice coil to the spider, and then the paper cone to the voice coil a little bit later on, but this is next. Oh, and make damn sure when you put your coil in, you align the leads up with the solder where they're going to be soldered on the backside there. So you should be able to see there. That's where it's going to be soldered. So that would be a pretty big boo-boo if you didn't have that lined up. So we'll get it ready to glue it in, and we'll be right back. All right, I got our epoxy ready to do. I'm a little nervous of how big of a glob is going to come pouring out of that mixing tip. So hopefully it won't be too bad here. Let's see. All right, there we go. What's coming out? Way more than I would like. Hopefully the paper cone will still fit on there. Yeah. All right. Yeah, way too much. Way too much. That's what I was afraid of, but all right. Looks like the camera moved a little bit, but you get the idea. Boy, that really came kicking ass out of there. I'm afraid it would, but I think we're going to be okay. So we'll let that set up and we'll be back. Alrighty, we got our voice coil glued to our spider, and we're ready to put our paper cone in. So there's our new paper cone, and I got some yellow masking tape on there so my dumbass doesn't glue this out of where I poked the holes for the wires to the voice coil. I just use sharp poker, poked it in there. I've seen people use heating up a hot pick and burning a hole through, but I think this is the best way to do it. Just it's more controlled. So we'll all right. You would obviously do this with the speaker up so it's laying completely flat, but just so you can see, it's when you go to glue it, it's got some wiggle room, so you want to center it there and make sure it's not pushing on our spider. So yeah, not too bad. And then we got these pieces of wire that will braided wire that will go through our holes that we poked in there, and that came from the Simply Speaker website. So, and to glue the paper down, we're going to use this MI 3035. Seems to be a good glue, and I managed to salvage the cardboard ring from the speaker, so we'll glue the paper, And we'll glue this down and use some paper clips to hold it down. So then the last thing we'll need to do is just epoxy the paper to the voice coil and spider and solder our leads. So I'm going to do the alignment of gluing this off camera so I can see what I'm doing, and I'll come back when I'm using the clothesline clips to hold everything together. So we'll be right back. Okay, that's our paper clipped deal, and or paper clipped clothesline clips. And actually, as I was digging these out of the basement, I was wondering if they still make wood clothesline clips. They're probably plastic now, but they work real good. And sorry for my voice being a little raspy. I'm getting over a cold, and takes me forever to get over those things and congestion and whatnot. But anyway, we almost got this darn speaker done. You could, instead of using paper clips, just invert this and put some weights on top, but I was afraid of things moving around, so I like the control of using the paper clips. I keep saying paper clips, clothesline clips. And I don't know if you can see, I went a little crazy with the glue, but I wanted to be sure she was glued down. So anywho, we'll let that dry for 24 hours, and we're near the end. Okay, we got our paper cone glued down. I went a little crazy with the glue, but I guess better too much glue than not enough, so it stays in place. So the last two steps I think I'm going to do in one shot. That is epoxying the voice coil spider to the paper cone and soldering our coil leads on the braided wire here for the connections. So I'm going to use a little irrigating syringe, just going to fill that with epoxy so I can have nice control of putting the epoxy right where I want it instead of that tip on that thing. So let's get a closer look at what we're going to be soldering here. So I have our braided wires sticking up here, and we need to wrap these little tiny ones around there, solder it. Then when we epoxy around the voice coil, we'll run a little bit along those wires to secure it. So I already kind of placed these, so we'll go in there, and it's a little tricky. All right, get something to hold this wire in place here, and I need something a little bit bigger. Try a pencil eraser. There we go. Just like tying a shoe, right? guess a couple wraps ought to be good. Hopefully I'm not blocking the camera too much. So we'll, after we wrap it and solder it, we'll cut the tops off here so we don't have a huge piece of wire sticking out there. So, yeah. All right, let me just off camera kind of tighten those up a little bit. I'll be right back. That's a little bit neater. So we'll get our soldering iron here. Incidentally, I just wrapped it around about 3 times, and let's see if we can do this without destroying it. Huh. Not too bad. So next thing we'll do is get our epoxy ready. And let me get that ready. Be right back. All right, I got a little more light in there. Sorry I didn't realize it was so freaking dark. So I'm going to fill up my syringe here with the epoxy, and hopefully that should be enough, I would think. Always better to have too much and not enough, right? All right, let's get our epoxy in here. Oh, cripes. All right, sorry about that. It's such a tight space in there. I got some epoxy on my shim there. So I went into panic mode and managed to pull the shim up a little bit and get the epoxy off of it, so it should be okay, hopefully. So we'll let that dry and we'll be back. And that's it. Our speaker is complete. I still need to solder the voice coil wires to the terminals on the back there, but the speaker is essentially done. And almost glued the stupid shims to the voice coil, which would have been not so good. But it's kind of hard to do that stuff on camera when you're trying to keep out of the view of the camera, and it's not that easy. But anyway, I hope you found this informative. If anyone needs to replicate this on an old speaker, and if you don't have the right size spider, sometimes you can get one a little bit bigger and trim it down. And as I said before, I didn't get all these parts for free from Simply Speaker, but they're real good people. I've used them before in the past, and they've gotten all the parts that I've needed at a reasonable price. So I highly recommend them for your speaker repair. So this will wrap it up. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.